Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well, ready for a Shabbat of relaxation and inspiration and hope, because there is hope. There is so much hope. As more and more people are getting vaccinated, more and more in our community are getting vaccinated. Many have received the first shot, some even the second shot, and what a blessing it is to be in this time of hope and ingenuity and miracles. It's really an extraordinary blessing, and that gives us so much satisfaction and happiness, embracing this Shabbat and knowing that there is a bright future ahead for us and for our community. I was recently in the sanctuary of the Scheier preparing for our Purim festivities and cleaning up a little bit, and I came across a folder that had in it papers that I had printed out for Parshat TISSA, this week's Parsha, 5780, which was 2020. Parshat TISSA was March 14th of last year. And it was the day before, on March 13th, that we pulled the trigger, that we made the decision late in the day to close the Scheier for services. It was a decision that was very difficult at the time, not so obvious at the time, but in retrospect, of course, it was the right and clear decision to make, and most other synagogues in the city followed suit the following week, and of course we were closed for an extended period, as we continue to be now, with a few periods of interruption of services in between. And in that folder, I had notes for a Dvar Torah that I wanted to give, and also I had printed out something that I found inspiring that I wanted to read for myself during those services, and I'll share both with you. So the Dvar Torah had to do with the machzit hashekel, with the half shekel, which the Torah portion opens with, which was the donation that the people were to offer as a way of counting, a means of census. Everyone would offer a half shekel coin, and by counting the sum of the donations, they would know how many people there were. There's a unique phrase in the Torah when God says to Moses, "Ze yitnu," they shall give this. What is this? Why is it so direct and specific? And Rashi, quoting the Midrash, says that God showed Moses, as means of demonstration, showed Moses a matbea shel esh, a coin of fire, as a way of showing him what the money should be, what it should look like, what the commandment should look like. And the Noam Elimelech, the great Hasidic commentator, offered the beautiful interpretation. He said, why a coin of fire? Because fire has two sides to it. It could be, on the one hand, destructive, and on the other hand, constructive. Fire is at the cornerstone of what human ability has been able to build in this world. All starts with fire. Fire is destruction and construction. So too, God showed Moses the coin of fire to show him how the people were to give the actual coins, because actual coins as well have two sides to them. Money can be destructive and money can be constructive. It just depends how one uses the money that God has allowed us to have, that God has allotted for us. It's all entrusted to us from God, and so how we use our funds, how we use our money, is really up to us, but there are two sides to that. And probably, I don't have this in my notes, but were I to have given that sermon on March 14th, on the service that was canceled, I probably would have talked about the challenge of a pandemic. And remember, back then we thought we were only closing for 2 weeks. That was the common understanding. But perhaps we would have spoken about how there are two sides to every story, and there are two sides to every challenge. And there are two ways of approaching every challenge. And some challenges lead people to thrive, and some challenges lead people to crumble. And sometimes the same challenge leads this set of people to succeed, and this set to not succeed. And then we choose how we respond to these challenges. And I think the last year has really borne that message out, and that we've seen some great successes. Some people rise to the challenge, and we've seen some people struggle. And we acknowledge that both are valid responses to a pandemic, and we offer support to each other throughout, regardless of what our response is to difficult circumstances. What I had printed out for myself was a letter that was written by a rabbi in Australia, Rav Aaron Moss, and he wrote something that very resonated with me in the moment, but certainly a year later is quite powerful. And he wrote, "The coronavirus thing has really thrown me." He said, "I feel like I've lost all sense of certainty. No one knows what will happen next. How do we stay sane when we don't know what's lurking around the corner. And then he writes later on, he said, this is always the case. We never know what the future holds. We only think we do. And we keep getting surprised when things don't pan out the way we expected. Now the mask is off. Remember, this is the week after Purim. The mask is off. We have to admit our vulnerability. What will happen next? We don't know. Our experts don't know. Our leaders don't know. Only God knows, and that's the point. Only God knows. Keep calm, he wrote. Panic and fear are also contagious. Take every precaution as advised by health authorities. Wash your hands well, and every time you do, remember whose hands you are in. It's a message that we've heard many times from many different people that has sustained us through difficult times, knowing that ultimately we are not in control. We only think we are in control, and in God's hands are our lives. And that's a very meaningful message, certainly a year later, reflecting on what this last year has been for the members of our community, for the world, a life-altering year, but coming from it with an awareness and an appreciation for the very basic understandings of goodness and faith that perhaps we would not have had otherwise. And it's those understandings and those values that please God in this new era of hope, and as we emerge and pass through to a post-pandemic world, please God soon that these values and these understandings of God's presence in our lives, of our control over our lives, of the different ways and the different manners in which we respond to different circumstances, that all of those, that collection of understandings, that's what guides us and stays with us even when we're through the immediate challenge that this pandemic has presented. Stay healthy and well, everyone, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I figured that this week I would return to a discussion of some of the melodies that we can sing around our Shabbat tables, and in particular, the melodies that we can use to begin Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meals. You know that we begin saying Birkat Hamazon on Shabbat and holidays with Psalm 126, affectionately known as Shir HaMa'alot. But that really doesn't tell us enough, because there are a number of chapters from the book of Psalms that begin with Shir HaMa'alot. But in this particular chapter, we sing of B'shuv Adonai et Shivat Zion, Hayinu Kecholmim. It's a reminder to the Jews in the diaspora that someday we hope to return to the land of Zion, and it will be just as we've dreamt about it all of these years in exile. There are many, many tunes that we can sing this to, and as you know, I'm a tremendous advocate of not singing something the same way twice, but imbuing it with fresh meaning and a sense of newness each time we do it. So I'll offer two melodies this week. One is a Germanic melody. It goes like this. Shir HaMa'alot B'shuv Adonai et Shivat Zion Hayinu Kecholmim Az Yimale Sechok Pinu Ulshoneinu Rina Az Yomru Vagoyim Higdil Adonai Lasot Imele Higdil Adonai Lasot Imanu Hayinu Sem and so forth. And I'll finish off with a melody that I grew up with in my family, a Dutch melody. You have to do a little bit of jigging at the end and repeat the first line of the psalm in order to make the melody fit, but it's a fun one. Shir HaMa'alot B'shuv Adonai et Shivat Zion Hayinu Kecholmim Az Yimale Sechok Pinu Ulshoneinu Rina Az Yomru Vagoyim Higdil Adonai Lasot Imele Higdil Adonai Lasot Imanu Hayinu Semechim Shuv Adonai et Sheviteinu Kafikim Banegev Hazorim Bedima Berina Yikzoru Haloch Yelechu Vacho Nosei Meshech Hazara Bo Yavo Verina נושא אלומותיו, שיר המדות בשוב אדוני, את שיבת ציון היינו כחולמים. In our family, it becomes a guessing game around the table. Which one will we do this week? Well, I hope that you can add these to your repertoire at home, and with them, you'll have a Shabbat Shalom. Be well.